Most people's lifestyles are largely shaped by their circumstances, and some lament their fate in vain. Yet, lamenting brings nothing in return. They believe that if only their circumstances were better, they could achieve something remarkable in life. Many, however, accept their lot with resignation, constrained by necessity. Their lives are like trams, endlessly running on the same tracks. When they break down, they are treated as nothing more than scrap iron and sold off to some junk dealer. Very few individuals exist who, undeterred by circumstances, take the reins of life firmly into their own hands. Thomson Wilson belonged to this rare breed. He took an unusual step to change his life, but since the destination of his journey was unknown, predicting his success was nearly impossible. I had heard much about his uniqueness. At first, people said he preferred solitude, but I resolved in my heart that I would, by some means, coax him into recounting his life story myself, for I did not trust the accounts of others. I went to a healthful retreat for a few days, and there I met him. Standing by the river with my host, he suddenly called out, "Wilson!" I asked, "Where is he?" My host replied, "Why, the one in the blue shirt sitting on the bench with his back to us." I looked in the direction he indicated and saw a man in a blue shirt with white hair. I hoped he would turn around so we could invite him to join us for a stroll. The sun's reflection was dipping into the river, and the tourists were chirping about their day. At that moment, I was so captivated by the beauty of nature that I did not notice Wilson approaching. When he passed by, my friend stopped him and introduced him to me. He shook my hand, though with a certain indifference. My friend sensed it and offered him a drink of wine. He smiled upon accepting. His teeth were not perfect, yet his smile was charming. He wore a blue shirt and gray trousers, somewhat soiled and ill-fitted to his frame. His face was long, with thin lips and brown eyes. His facial features were distinct, hinting that he must have been handsome in his youth. His demeanor suggested he might be an insurance agent. We walked together and eventually reached a restaurant, sitting in an adjoining garden while a waiter fetched wine. The innkeeper's wife was also present. Age had dulled some of her former charm, but her facial features still carried remnants of a youthful allure. 30 years ago, prominent artists were devoted admirers of her. Her slightly intoxicating eyes and honeyed smile had a unique charm. We the three of us chatted idly. As the conversation grew dull, Wilson excused himself and departed, leaving us a little melancholy. On the way, my friend remarked about Wilson. "The story you told seems far-fetched to me." "Why?" I asked. "Because he couldn't possibly do something like that," he said. "How can anyone accurately judge another's nature?" I countered. "To me, he seems ordinary, someone who, freed from certain safeguards, has distanced himself from the usual business of life." "Then consider it so," I said. The next day, we saw Wilson again by the riverside, this time in brown attire, a pipe in his teeth. Even his wrinkles and white hair could not mask a youthful spirit. We changed into our swimwear and entered the water. When I emerged, I found Wilson lying face down on the ground reading a book. I approached, lit a cigarette, and he looked up, asking, "Finished bathing?" "Yes," I replied. "Nothing in the world compares to bathing here. How long have you been here?" 15 years, he said, glancing at the rippling blue waves, a faint smile playing on his lips. "The first time I came here, I fell in love with this place. Have you heard of the German who came here once for lunch and ended up staying 40 years? That will be my fate too. If not 40, then at least 25. I wished he would continue his story. His words hinted that there was truth behind his fable. Just then, my friend returned from a swim, cheerful, and our conversation shifted. Later, after many encounters, I learned that he was a man of moderation. He tolerated nothing that disturbed his freedom, and no woman had ever captivated him. He loved only the natural world, and he had found in it a rare, lasting happiness. I could not say whether he was wise or foolish, but he knew himself thoroughly. After my final visit, I bade my host farewell and returned home. Shortly after, war broke out, preventing me from returning to the island for 13 years. When I finally arrived, my friend was in a pitiable state. I rented a room in a hotel and asked about Wilson. He remained silent, and his silence saddened me. I asked anxiously, "Did he commit suicide?" With a heavy sigh, he said, "This is a tragic tale. Wilson's plan allowed him to live comfortably for 25 years, but he did not know that such ease would erode his willpower. Struggle is essential to keep the mind alive. Walking smooth paths, one cannot climb mountains." His fortune ran out. He borrowed, and the creditors began to press him. One day he lit many coals in the small room where he slept and closed the door. The next morning, when his housemaid came to serve breakfast, she found him unconscious. He was taken to the hospital and survived, but his mind was nearly gone. When I visited him, he looked at me with bewildered eyes, as if he did not recognize me. I asked my friend, "Where does he live now?" "His house has been sold. He wanders the hills aimlessly." I called out to him once or twice, but he bolted like a wild deer. 2 or 3 days later, as my friend and I walked, he called out, "Wilson!" I saw him hiding behind an olive tree. As we approached, he remained still, then suddenly ran away like a young man set free. I never saw him again. Upon returning home, a year later, I received a letter from my friend. Wilson had died. His body was found along the hillside, his face serene as though he had passed away in his sleep. That night, the full moon shone bright. Perhaps, I think, it was the full moon that claimed his life.